Hi, everyone. Welcome to Free Advice Friday and to Bestseller Builders. I would like to welcome all of you to this session where we're going to be focusing on how to make money with your writing and with your content outside of books. And the only person I could think of to talk about this, and certainly the best and the expert that I turn to for things about the business world and the business side, is Julie Ann Eason. Julie is the powerhouse behind Thanet House Publishing. Her URL is right under her name there, right under her face. And I'm going to start by asking Julie just a couple of quick questions because there's things I don't know about her background. But Julie, tell us a little bit about how you spend your days. What is it you do right now, and how do you work with authors at the moment?
Oh my gosh. So right now, we actually, just this week, we have flipped our model again. And it's interesting that we're talking to writers because that's part of it. We, at Thanet House Publishing, just to give a background, I've been writing for 30 years professionally. I started as a journalist, and then I went into freelance writing, and then I went into copywriting, and I excelled at it. I learned sales, I learned marketing, I got really, really good at the writing part of things. And then all my clients wanted books. And so I sort of fell into writing books. And then I started writing books for them, and they loved it and everything, but the publishing got all screwed up. So they didn't know how to get a publisher. And then they were spending a lot of money on publisher services companies. And they were just like, and they're like, I'm just going to do it myself, because they're all entrepreneurs and they all want to do everything themselves. And they completely ruined all my beautiful words. So what I did is I learned publishing. And so we have evolved into a full service publishing house. And what we do is we work with business authors mainly, who have ideas, world-changing missions, and they come to us because we help them with taking their idea and their goals, which are usually to make more money because they want their business, they want the book to serve their business. And we write the books, we help them with the editing process, we help them with all of the things that need to happen, publishing, including distribution, and I rely on Amy's expertise monthly to like, oh my gosh, we need to get this book out, where's a good place to put it? And so we help with distribution. I learn things every day. This week, I'm learning how to distribute in India. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. So, I mean, we're literally like going global. And the biggest thing that I'm so proud of that we're working on right now, which applies specifically to authors who want to make money outside of their own books, is we are setting up basically an author database, or I'm sorry, a ghostwriter database, because we're finding that it is difficult to find really good ghostwriters who can write in a client's voice the way that I want them to write. Basically, they all want to hire me, and I'm like, I don't do that anymore. I don't write books anymore, but they're like, but, and I'm like, but I can't. I don't have time. So we are training and bringing in our own little stable, and I hate that word stable, but that's what they say, you know, our own group of beautiful ghostwriters who are trained in our method and who are able to write very high quality books at high prices. And, you know, the writers are happy, we're happy, and that way we're not quite so strapped with like, sorry, like right now we have a waiting list, and I don't like putting authors on hold, because that means they're not making money with their books, because we teach them how to make money with their books. So
Julie, I now have a million questions. My first one is, if a writer has an interest in being considered as a ghostwriter and being trained by you, yeah, is that a possibility?
Yes, that is what we're setting.
How would a writer who might want to consider getting into ghostwriting go about being evaluated by your company?
So the first thing that's going to be, we're not even ready for that yet. The first thing you would do is you email me, and I will put you on a list and talk to you and get you up to speed. You can even attach a writing sample, but Julie@ThanetHouseBooks.com or Julie@ThanetHousePublishing.com, either one will work. And that way I'll know that you're coming from Amy, or just say, hey, I'm coming from Amy Collins's call. And we have to set up an intake form and everything. But if you want to learn faster than that, if you like have people who really want books, like there is an unending supply of people who need ghostwriters. This is what I really want to talk about today, is how lucrative this business really is for writers who are good. I actually have another website where our training is all online, and it's just the writing portion, and it's very inexpensive, but that's at inspireeducatesell.com.
Hold on, Inspire. educatesell.com.
Yep. And that's just where you can go and get our training, like our basic training that all of our writers get, and they have to go through that before they do anything else with us. So that's where they would start.
All right. And then, so let's talk a little bit about we're going to get to all sorts of things about monetization, guys, and making money, but let's stick with this ghostwriting thing for a second. You're a novelist. I know you focus on nonfiction to start. Mm-hmm. But let's say that you are a novelist, you're a poet, you've written a memoir, you're not a trained business writer, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a talented writer. Will InspireEducateSell.com teach you how to frame your writing?
Yes.
Okay, for all genres or just nonfiction?
It specifically is for prescriptive nonfiction, which is how-to books. And it's funny, I didn't even know what that word was or that anyone could even do that until I watched the Bob Newhart show when I was a kid. And I was like, he writes how-to books on how to put together furniture? I could totally do that.
Well, when I worked for many years for Adams Media, and Adams Media built their empire on prescriptive how-to. It was the Everything series, the Everything College Cookbook, the Everything Play the Piano, how-to books. And they're
how-to books. And there's 29 million companies, small businesses in the U.S. alone, and every single one of those businesses needs a book. They all know they need books now because that is the new business card. Mm-hmm. So they are coming to us, and they're coming to there's a lot of different ways to do it out there. I happen to think that my method is the best because I've been doing it for so long, and I've gotten it to where we have to do it really fast. So it's not about speed as much as quality, but the way that I lay out how to do an outline, for example, and how to really write with emotion. Like most of these business people, they can write. They're fine writers. Like they can do what they want to do if they needed to. They don't have time, and they don't know how to write beyond just the facts. So most prescriptive nonfiction books are really boring, and that's because there's no emotions and there's very few stories. And so in Inspire, Educate, Sell, what I do is I teach you how to think of your book in terms of music, and the fact that we teach you how to flow from chapter to chapter, and how chapters individually flow musically, and down to the sentences and how sentences flow musically, so that the book isn't boring, so that like we get into geeky neuroscience and like how to release dopamine in a reader's system so that they keep reading the book, and all these cool things that I geek out over. I could talk about it for hours, and you probably have to tell me to shut up. But yeah, we anybody who loves words and wants to get better at writing, doesn't matter what genre I started I thought I was going to be a fiction writer because I had a lot of friends who were very successful fiction writers, but I was terrible at it. I was like, this is like, I was 16, and we all start with terrible 16-year-old angsty writing, but I was like, there's got to be a better way, because I knew they didn't make a lot of money, and they were mid-list writers, and they were being published, but it wasn't what I wanted. And so then I learned how copywriting. So if you really want to learn how to sell clients on hiring you and how to sell in a book, learn copywriting. Like that is, I go and I look for copywriters first, because if they have those skills, I know they can do the books.
All right. So now let me ask you, because this show is all about giving all the information. And so where would, if let's say that somebody wanted to be a copywriter, let's say ghostwriting is not on their to-do list, but they'd love to write copy. They know they can write copy.
Yeah.
And where are some of the sites or some of the venues you go to find good copywriters? If somebody wanted to sign up or to be considered, how do you find copywriters, and where should these writers go if they want to be considered by other people?
If they need to learn the skills first, because it's sales skills. Writing to sell things is a persuasive operation, and it's different than just writing sentences. And there's different kinds of copywriting. There's direct sales marketing, and there's website writing and all those kinds of things. I don't actually have a place I go to find them. I am a big fan of in-person, go where the clients are and hang out, or go where the writers are and hang out, and learn by immersing yourself in that world. I learned copywriting. I bought an online course, and it was, I don't even know if they still sell it anymore. It was ages ago. You can't go wrong with like Dan Kennedy. He has straight up books. I paid $1,000 for this course, and I don't think it's around anymore, but Dan Kennedy has no BS direct marketing, copywriting books. There's a lot of good books. Bob Bly has amazing copywriting books. You really can learn the basics by studying that stuff. As far as where to go to get clients, I'm sure there are copywriting databases someplace. You could probably start on Upwork or freelancer.com or one of those kinds of places. But the best way to find clients is just get out in the world, get out from behind your computer and go and meet people in your town, talk to businesses, ask them what they need, and try to serve them first before you're asking for business. Like ask them, what do they do, and why are you so excited about what you do, and how do you serve people, and who are your ideal clients, so that I can send people to you. They're naturally going to want to ask you about what you do. Oh, well, I'm a writer and I help businesses, present a better brand, or whatever it is that you want to say. Is your little elevator pitch. But I don't actually go looking for writers that way. They seem to come to me, but when they do come to me, I ask them if they have copywriting backgrounds. Just because I know they already understand sales. And that's
so to reiterate, if somebody read Bob Bly, read Dan Kennedy, took a few, local courses, understood, and let's say decided to focus on website copy, which, God, my authors need website copy help desperately.
Yeah.
And so they learned, they decided to take their skills. You're suggesting that they get out from behind their computer and that they start networking and they start going where the businesses are,
yes,
getting to know the different businesses, finding out what their needs are. Take a look at the businesses' websites. Take a look at and start reaching out to people on a local geographic level. That's your advice.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be local. I mean, I live in Maine, and I didn't have any local people. I live in the woods. Like, there's moose, and they don't pay very well for copywriting. So
Really?
I know, isn't that surprising? So when I started, there was no internet. Literally, there was no internet. People would say, "Do you have the email?" And I would be like, "No, I don't have the email." So like it was much harder than now. There's so many ways that you can meet people online, and you can do social media and all of that, but you still have to really, the best clients I have are all referrals, and they're people that I've talked to. So knowing where you're going to go is important. You may not want to go locally, but I would say as much as you can, start locally, because it gives you practice. And I would just start out with a regular old chamber of commerce. Like, freaking go to your chamber of commerce and study the members, like look up their websites, look up who they are. And so you recognize them. Oh my gosh, I saw you. Was looking at your website yesterday, and don't go. Okay, well, this is one piece of advice that's really bad that people get all the time. Tell them where they made a mistake, or tell them that their web copy is really bad, or tell them that there's a typo on page 3. And all that does is piss people off.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That was like advice back in the early days of my career. And they would say, oh, well, just go and find every mistake you can, and then send them an email and say, I'd be happy to help you fix this.
Oh, I still get those. I get emails from people who say, hey, listen, I'm surprised I haven't heard from you. I emailed you yesterday and told you that, you're really missing out on SEO. You need
Yeah. I get that all the time. Yeah. So don't be cheesy, because there's no need to. Like, if you have a writing skill, that is so in demand. If you're good and you're legit and you're honest and you're transparent and you just talk to people. And if you're a brand new beginner, that's okay. Be honest and say, I am a brand new beginner, but I'd love to help you out if there's something I can, just be yourself. It's so much better than faking it.
Now, for those of you who, and we're really, focusing a lot on the nonfiction, but that is where most of the money is. And if you are a good writer, that skill can be transferred. Yes, I know. I've got one of you I'm looking at on the call right now. I'm looking at your name, and I mean, lovely, flowing, lyrical novels written for, the YA market, and fantasy novels, and if, Westerns and thrillers, and that's great. Keep writing those. But if you want a paycheck for writing, you don't, if you need a gig, and your choices are Walmart or copywriting,
Frickin' go with copywriting.
I'd say go with copywriting. So
Okay.
with the understanding, Julie, that there's a huge range, can you give people a low end and a high end for, let's say, a project that you've recently hired someone, no names, protect the innocent and not so innocent, but what sort of things should people be expecting to make as a copywriter?
Okay, so copywriting itself, so there's a hierarchy of writers, okay? And first of all, if you're a fiction author, you should study copywriting anyway, because you need to write newsletters, you need to write your own landing pages, you need to write your own sales descriptions on Amazon. If you're self-publishing, Amazon page, that's a sales page, that's copywriting. You need to be able to sell anyway. So
and you should not just be cutting and pasting your back cover copy. That is not what Amazon is for. That's a completely different set of copy.
Exactly. So anyway, getting that out of the way, like everybody should know this skill no matter what they do. But if you want to think about copywriting jobs, we're talking about anything from writing a website to writing, I mean, long pieces are books, short pieces are like Facebook ads. Short pieces are way harder to write and they don't pay as well. Right now, there's a glut in the copywriting market because, and like any freelance market, there's like, you have competition from all over the world, right? Like you have to compete with copywriters, quote unquote, in India or in Pakistan or in like the Philippines or wherever, where they're paying, you know, that's what the lament of freelance writers is. Oh my God, I can't compete on Upwork or on Freelancer because all of these foreigners are foreigners. All of these other people are you know, undercutting me and they're paying, why would anyone hire somebody at, you know, $50 an hour if they can get someone for $2 an hour?
Well, I can tell you that I've tried the $5 people, and you only do that once or twice, and then you learn to go back and hire $50 people.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can compete. Just, you know, yes, someone like me, I'll try the $5 or $10 guy because what the heck? And then I'll turn around and end up spending $200.
Exactly. And that's all in my new book, like how to like get those gigs and everything. So like check it out. But
what's that book called?
The Work at Home Success Guide.
You know, if you were better at marketing, you would have mentioned that without me asking.
Well, it was in my bio, but you didn't read it, so it's all good.
The Work at Home Success Guide. Is that oh, that's nice. Is that available on Amazon yet?
It sure is.
All right.
And regular book. And so anyway, besides all that, so you asked me about ranges of prices. So I want to, before we get into ranges of prices, because every project is different and everyone's experience level, number one, how much money you make is entirely dependent on your skill, but also your confidence, because every writer and every freelancer undercuts and doesn't believe in how much they are valued. And so confidence is something you've got to work on. I don't care how confident you are, you're still going to have to work on it. There's hierarchies of writers. There are content writers, there are copywriters, there are ghostwriters, and there's other places in there, but I'm going to keep it to those three things. It used to be there were journalists who did magazines. There were ghostwriters who do books, and there were copywriters who do all the sales and marketing. When the internet came along and social media came along, this weird new hybrid of writer came along called content writers. These are people who write blog posts, who write transcripts for podcasts, who do all of these other little things that are just content, which could be almost anything. The hierarchy is content writer is at the bottom, copywriters in the middle, and ghostwriters at the top.
Good. Okay. I want to repeat that. Content writers are at the bottom.
Bottom of the food chain.
Copywriters are in the middle, both in skill set and in perception.
Yep.
And ghostwriters, that's the highest level of skill set and perception and pay.
Right. And here's what's tricky, because the amount of skill you need is the same for all of them. So, but the perception has always been and will always be, until there is no longer books, that books are important. We learn the most, and I thought a long time about why are books so important? And it's because we're taught from sometimes before we're born, but definitely from birth, that books matter. We're taught that because the very first big kid job we have to do is learn how to read. Our parents read to us. Our teachers read to us. Where are the answers to all of the tests? In the book. right? So we have this innate knowledge that books are incredibly important and they're permanent. Nowadays, we're so used to being able to click a button and we can change whatever is on the website. You can't do that with a book that's printed. So employers or anybody who's going to hire you to do anything writing related, they're naturally going to value books way more than they're going to value a piece of content that may be here today, gone tomorrow. They can change it whenever they want. They don't see as much value in that because they're like, oh, well, I can write a blog post, so I'm going to pay you like, $20. I mean, that's actually a good blog post payment, which is ridiculous, but that's where it is. So what I have discovered is if you go into an organization as a ghostwriter at the top of the food chain, they will let you write everything else in their entire organization. They will trust you because they trusted you to write the book and you did a good job. They'll let you write all of their emails. They'll let you write all of their web content. They'll let you write anything that you suggest. And if you're smart, you are suggesting to them, so how about we do this? Or how about we do a workbook? Or how about we, jazz up your website? And they're like, oh yes, please do that. That's how you get recurring income at the highest rate. When you come in as a content writer, which is the easiest gig to get, but it's the lowest paying, they don't trust you to write the other stuff because they don't think you can do it. Not because you can't, but it's just a perception. Okay. And so that's just so important to understand. And also the fact that consumers and business people, and they don't understand that there's this difference. And so you have to kind of educate them in your sales process and say, there's content writers, there's copywriters, and then there's ghostwriters. Ghostwriters do books. When they get that, because they'll call someone who writes a blog post for them a ghostwriter. And so you sort of educate them on like, that's not really what it is. But so let's go with books because that's the top of the food chain. That's where you want to be. Okay. And these numbers might freak you out a little bit, but at this point in time, I charge $50,000 to write a book and I can do 3 or 4 a year. I'm not doing it as much anymore because I'm too busy with everything else that I'm doing at the publishing house, but I do still keep my hand in it. Mm-hmm. I did not get there overnight. I've been doing this for 30 years. So don't feel like, nah, right? So there are people who just want an ebook and they just want it done quickly. And it's only going to be maybe 10,000 words. And they will happily, for a beginner level person, pay 5,000. Like that's what I pay my brand new, I'm going to test you out and I really don't know what you're going to do, but I'm just going to give you a chance because I like you, is $5,000.
Yeah.
Which for a lot of writers is like, that'll buy a lot of ramen,
Yeah. And I will tell you that I hire experienced ghostwriters whom I also like. You have to like them. You can't hire a ghostwriter. You have to like them and you have to be likable. If there's anyone listening to this right now who has a hard time making friends or has been told over and over again, I didn't think you liked me. This may not be the industry for you. You have to bond with people. I would be a horrible ghostwriter because I don't like most people. But that's just it.
You're just particular. That's
I'm
all.
not particular. Most people don't like me. I mean, I'm people do not warm to me. But if I like you, I pay anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 for an experience, but I'm not paying for 120,000 word high level.
That's business. The other thing. These books are so much shorter than the novels that you're writing.
Yes.
A 50,000 word book is a very respectable 200-page business or prescriptive nonfiction book is absolutely where it should be.
Yes.
And some of these are even like 10,000 words.
But what I will often get is somebody who's come up with 14,000 words and they want to do a book. And I have to explain to them they don't have a book yet.
Right. They have
so we're going to turn that over to a ghostwriter and the ghostwriter will turn it into a 50,000 word book. I also have a number of people who have written inspirational or memoir or who are mind, body, spirit, and they have great content, but they're not great writers.
Yeah.
And not to put it on me again, I'm a good storyteller. I'm not a good writer. Those are two very different skills. So if, when I stand up in a cocktail party or a dinner party and people are like, oh, you should write a book. No, I shouldn't. I should not write a book. That is a different craft. It's a different skill set. I should work with a ghostwriter, give them my stories, and pay someone $50,000 because they're the ones who know how to write in my voice.
Yeah.
I pay someone to write in their voice $10,000. But if I want them to write in my voice, that pays more.
And that's a skill, and that's something that I teach my writers how to do, because and that's something that copywriters have to learn as well, because you cannot be, and this is a thing that where writers in general get attached to their words. They feel like their words are better than the client's words. They get emotional. It's like they're my babies, but you can't do that in copywriting. When you're writing for a client, the client is the one who has the final say. And if they want to scrap a book, some of my highest level clients, like the people who are running gigantic billion-dollar companies, those people sometimes say, I need a new book. Like, I have written 4 books had 2 books published. And we're like, okay, we're scrapping this and we're starting over. And you have to be okay with that. And you cannot be so emotionally attached to your words that you're arguing with the client. You can push back and say, I really think that this is, that we should do it this way, but you have to be able to collaborate with the client. And this is one thing that's really important, and it's really good to have in your back pocket, because I'll be like, well, I don't really feel like I'm going to be the author if I hire a ghostwriter. And you say, look, authors are one thing, writers are another thing. They're 2 different skills. Authors have the content. Writers are the ones who are doing the taking of the content and making it readable. Because a lot of the content right now is on video. A lot of the content is on podcasts, and we get that. And you can't just take a transcript and publish it. Well, you can, because a lot of people do, and it looks like crap. So when you say, when someone says that to you and you're having a client conversation, and you just say, hey, look, you're the author and I'm the writer. And it's a completely different skill set. And please don't feel like you're going to hand over your content and then you're just going to get back a finished book, because that's not how it works. There is back and forth and revising and tweaking, and hey, what about this? And I didn't think about this. And you have way too damn much content in this video. I can't fit it all in. There's a lot. It is a collaboration when it is done well, and when it is done at a high level, they expect that. They really do. If you're working now, that 50,000 number is lovely, but there's much higher levels. If you're working if you just really want to do celebrity bios or autobiographies or whatever, there's people making $100,000, $200,000. I mean, Hillary Clinton probably pays $500,000. So, there's gigantic numbers there, but there's also gigantic pains in the butt. Like the amount of back and forthing and interviewing and all of the things that you have to learn to do at that level are amazing. But you should really expect that they're going to push back and say, oh, but then I'm not really the author if somebody else writes it. And that's just not the case. I mean, I don't know what your number is, but I always tell people 75-80% of the books in Barnes & Noble were written by ghostwriters. Like, they just were. You don't know that. I didn't
know that. I've never tossed out a number because I had no idea.
Look at the covers of any book you go look at in Barnes & Noble. If there is the word so-and-so with so-and-so, that co-author was the ghostwriter. Mm-hmm. Almost always. If they say,
I know that a number of big names now, James Patterson, and I know a number of big names now do, in essence, you can give them $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and you write the book. You're paying James Patterson, by the way, for his name on the book. Yeah, I mean, you're not getting paid, but I mean, you can. So let's talk a little bit about, and I know you're not an expert in that side, but let's recap. We've talked about being a content provider, and if you want to get into writing content and being a copywriter on a beginner level, you take the classes, you read the books, maybe go to inspireeducatesell.com, look up Dan Kennedy and Bob Bly. Thank you for those names. And then you start reaching out to companies where you feel you can add value, and you ask them about them. And then they will start hiring you to write for projects. That's on the lowest level. The highest level we've been talking about is ghostwriting, where for anywhere from 5, 10, or 50 to 100,000, depending, you can be hired by either a celebrity or a memoirist or a business or a work-for-hire publishing company like a dummies book. You can be hired to, and it is a work-for-hire process, guys. You don't get royalties for the most part. You do not have the copyright. You are writing this book and you are giving it in exchange for a great deal of cash. You are giving that and all the rights away. You may not use that content again. It is not yours for the most part.
And you often can't tell people that you wrote it. Like there may be an NDA.
Which is why you get the cash. The check is very, very helpful.
Yes.
But it is work for hire. There's no royalties. There's nothing like that's not how it works. And a work for hire, there's not we don't even call it an advance. They give you your first payment, and it's not an advance against anything.
Yes.
So
I get it up front, by the way. When you set up your fees, your writing is the commodity that you are trading for, and you need to be paid up front for at least 25 to 50%. You might, when you're first starting out, negotiate a little bit of extra. You might say, okay, well, let's just get a little deposit. Or if you're unsure of yourself because you're just starting, say, let me do a chapter for you and make sure that you like it, and then we'll talk about the rest of the project. There's ways that you can get around that, but you need to, when you get to a point where you're confident and you're at a higher level and you're like really working this, and it is a significant part of your income, if not all of your income, then you need to get at least 50% up front, because once they see those words, you have released your commodity, and then weird stuff can happen.
Yes. And guys, women in particular, I don't mean to play this card, but I'm going to. Women in particular have a hard time asking for what they deserve. They have a hard time asking for money. I don't mean all women, but statistically, I'll speak for myself. I was one of them. And asking
I did the same thing. It's
asking for 50% upfront that is the norm. You are not asking for anything you do not deserve. You are not asking for anything you shouldn't have. And yes, when you're just starting out, you need to earn your way into their trust. When you have a new relationship with a new client, but that does not mean earning your way does not mean giving away. There's a difference. So, write a sample chapter, and then state after I will write, the first chapter, which is going to be 2,200 words. I will send you 2,200 words. And then we either proceed with a contract, with, a final contract, and I get 50% up front. That's just how it works.
It's just how it works. Pretend you're at McDonald's. McDonald's doesn't say, oh, those fries, I hope you really like them. They weren't quite as salty as we normally make them. And so like, is it okay if you pay us? Like, no. You literally have to pretend that this is a transaction. And it took me probably 10 years to get to this point. And somebody said, just pretend you're at McDonald's, and you say, this is the price. And if they walk away, that's okay, because there are 100 people behind them who will not walk away.
And that is the truth, guys. If there's two sides of this. One is, we as writers, we have to educate ourselves. We have to train ourselves. We have to invest in our craft. We need to make sure that we are polished and that we are at the top of our game. But once we've done that, once we've put in our time and handled our side of what we need to, then at that point, we've done our bit, and you are now ready to go into the world. And I love the McDonald's. I use car dealerships.
Yep.
I would love to drive a Mercedes. Oh my gosh, those ML 600s are gorgeous. I would love to drive a Mercedes.
You will someday.
I drive a Volvo. You know why I drive a Volvo? Because that's what I can afford. And so there's nothing wrong. And some people, I know there are companies out there, you were saying you charge $50,000. You are a Mercedes. There are other people out there who they are the writing version of a Volvo. There's nothing wrong. Volvos are amazing. They're great.
And they can write faster than me maybe, and they're making more, per hour. I mean, who knows? Like,
you've got to fit with the client. It's not a matter of you being rejected. It's a matter of you not being a good fit for their needs.
Right.
I will never, ever, ever, ever drive a Subaru. I won't drive a Subaru because I don't like the way that the headrests push all the way forward. It makes me feel, I don't like the way I feel in a Subaru. There's nothing wrong with a Subaru. It's not a good fit. Under no circumstances would I go with Subaru's not sitting there at their main offices going, we're such failures. Amy didn't buy us.
He doesn't like us. Oh,
there's something wrong with us. They don't, that's not, and that's how we need to be. All right. So to recap, we've talked about content providing. We've talked about ghostwriting. I would like to ask, are there other ways that you have experienced or that you know of that writers can make, because I'd like to talk a little bit about content and repurposing content, But
Heck
are
yeah.
there other ways that you can think of that writers can make money outside of their books?
Heck yeah. Well, I was going to say write your own books to build your business, but that's still with books. So let me think. The best ways that writers can make money outside their books. Really, the biggest thing next is courses. So what information do you know about that you could teach someone? And this is a little bit of a rabbit hole because it goes into a whole nother, like, you're creating a business kind of thing. But let's just say that your books are about, I don't know, knitting, because it's right in front of me. And so you've written knitting novel. There is a woman, Stephanie Pearl, something. Her name is the Yarn Harlot. Yarn Harlot is her blog, but she literally does humor. She is the Irma Bombeck of the knitting world. And if you think the knitting world is small, you should go check it out.
No.
It's crazy. And so she does humor around knitting. And she's written probably 5 or more books at this point, and none of them have patterns in them. They're not pattern books. They're not anything like that, but knitters adore her. Okay, and so she's got these books based on that. Now she also sells patterns because she creates them, and she also can sell. This is a perfect example. What she did, she set up a retreat. She's like, I want to go and hang out with my knitters. I want to hang out with my readers. And so she started, and I can't remember the name of it, but she lives in Toronto. She started a retreat with a friend of hers, and I think it's in California or something. But like, she literally has people pay her, and that is her primary business now, besides the royalties coming in from her books, where she has 2 or 3 retreats a year in different places around the world. And people come and they spin and they knit and they're happy and they have a good time. And that's a business for her. That is a part that chunks onto her book. And her books are not, I mean, they're nonfiction, but they're story driven. So you could do that with, I'd have to think a few minutes to do one with like a crime drama or something, but like you could do some things that attach to your books. You can also do physical products with your books.
You could teach what you know about writing.
You could teach what you know about writing.
I am teaching a class at an organization right here in Rochester, New York tomorrow at Writers and Books.
Yeah.
I am getting paid to spend 3 hours of my I'm getting paid a lot to spend 3 hours of my Saturday talking to writers. If you are a novelist, you can teach what you know.
Yes. And you may know something that's related to your book. You may know something that's completely off the wall, which is why I thought of knitting, because that's just something that I do. And it has nothing to do with writing, but if I wanted to, I could create that. Online courses are so easy to create now, and you don't have to produce anything other than the content itself. You put on a video, you put your iPhone or whatever, your smartphone on record, and you talk. And some writers are not comfortable doing that, and they'd rather write, and you can do that, but that's, writing a book. That's basically a prescriptive nonfiction book is a course that's in book format. Mm-hmm. But there's so many ways you can do that. You can also do physical products related to your book. So I never thought of this until I looked up Stephen King, and I looked up Stephen King products. You can get like keychains and t-shirts and all kinds of licensed material that is around his particular books. Like you can get a keychain, and this isn't Stephen King, but you can get a keychain to the Bates Motel. That looks like those old-fashioned key fobs that are Bates Motel. I mean, that's like licensed content. That is a thing that someone created. And if you have a big fan base with lots of people who love your books, would they like a t-shirt to go with that? Or would you want
And speaking of t-shirts, I actually make a nice little side income putting snarky, weird sayings on t-shirts and selling them on Amazon.
Yeah.
Guys, you can, if you've got a particularly quirky sense of humor, or if you're particularly spiritual, if you're listening and you're, a Christian inspirational writer, if you're a novelist who has written for a particular genre, you can actually take a number of very clever sayings or inspirational sayings and put them on t-shirts. Printed t-shirts are very hot right now.
Or mugs.
Yeah. Personally, mugs drive me nuts, but sure. Yeah, guys, I want to open this up because but if anyone has any questions for Julie, please type them into the chat box.
Oh my God, we're still talking. We haven't even asked if they have questions.
No. I've been keeping an eye. Okay. There was one question from Denise who wanted to know your website again, and I put that in the chat box. But for everyone who's listening, perhaps on the Free Advice Friday podcast, I want to remind everyone that this is Julie Ann Eason, excuse me, from Thanet House Books, thanethousepublishing.com or thanehousebooks.com. She is also the brainchild behind inspireeducatesell.com, a website that will help teach you how to take your writing skills and turn it into copywriting skills.
Nope. This is all about book writing.
Ghostwriting, excuse me, ghostwriting. But if anyone has any questions for Julie, because I have a few that I'm about to hit you with. Now, I'm a big fan of repurposing content for subscription services. I know that Wattpad has recently opened up a pay for play aspect where once you develop a big enough fan base on Wattpad, you can actually start getting paid for the downloads and for the story snippets that you submit. There are tons of newsletters and magazines out there, tons of them that need content and will happily pay for content. And if you are a novelist and you're saying to yourself right now, well, you know, I can't write for Chain Store Fulfillment Magazine. You're right, you can't. But you could contact them and work out a deal where you will create. Yes, Julie, I'm sorry, you're raising your hand. Is there something you'd like to share?
Yes, you can. In fact, that trade journals was how I really started in journalism, because it was so hard to break into Cosmo and Redbook and all of the, you know, the big magazines. And I needed to find a way to bring in a little extra money. I used to write for, I swear to God, Mini Storage Messenger. And there was Healthcare Traveler magazine, which is all about the industry, the per diem industry of where nurses and doctors would get posted in different places. I did two articles a month for them, and that was $500 a month. That bought a lot of diapers back in the day. Like, I was so happy to do those. It took me 20 minutes to do the interview. It took me 30 minutes to do the articles. And I had guaranteed 2 every month. Trade journals need writers, and people, most writers, and this is a copywriting thing and it's sort of a journalism thing, they don't think to approach those things. Like Mini Storage Messenger, who would even think that that was a thing? But anybody who owns a mini storage company, I had to write about like how to keep snow from falling on your customers with these things they put on the roof. Like, you write about weird stuff, but it's really good practice, and there's hundreds of thousands of things out of magazines out there that need the content.
There's the American Association of Journalists and Authors. There is the EFA, excuse me, Editorial Freelancers Association. There are organizations out there where writers, people with that skill, can go and become members and literally learn, or if you already know, you can grow from where you are, and you can take your skill to them and start getting business that way.
And if you can bring them an idea for an article, because those poor editors are so overworked and they just like, oh my God, I have to come up with another idea. That's part of freelancing, is you come up with the ideas, say, hey, and I'd love to write it for you.
All right. So that is terrific ways to go. I want to remind you guys that if you are a novelist or a poet, you are a writer. And that writing is a talent, yes, but it's also a craft. This is very similar in many ways to dancing. Many.
Do it longer.
I'm sorry?
But you can do it longer. You don't age out like you do with dancing.
Yes. But just like dancing, you may have a talent at singing or dancing, but you need to educate yourself. You need to teach yourself how to maximize and optimize your skills. Yes, you're talented, but that doesn't mean you're ready. Crafts such as dancing, singing, writing, you need to constantly be improving and getting outside help and teaching. But once you're ready, you can make, and so whether you're a novelist or a writer, you've got the talent. You can get the skills. Skills can be acquired, talent can't. So if you've got the talent, it is not that hard to acquire the skills. It does not take as long as you think it does. You can start from where you are. You can start small. You were talking about the hierarchy. Start offering content right now to the people you know. How do you get started making money as a writer? You get started. You join the organizations, you read the Bly's, you go get the Bob Bly and the Dan Kennedy books, you go to inspireeducatesell.com. You buy the Work at Home Success Guide from Julie Ann Eason. But educate yourself, get the skills you need, you already have the talent. And I got to tell you, selling content was very nerve-wracking for me. I didn't think anyone would want it. I didn't think I was good enough. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you, if people are buying content from me, they're going to buy it from anyone. So please.
Oh, that's not true.
For the love of Mike, you guys, the only thing that's stopping you at this point, the only thing stopping you from making a living with the written word is you. I want to reiterate one more time that you can be a content provider by reaching out to the people you know and to the people you find. There's Julie has it all laid out in her book. You can become a ghostwriter on the other end of the spectrum but again, get the training, learn to work and to write in other people's voices. I know people like Denise, you're already good at it. Denise makes a living as a ghostwriter. But Denise, if you're not getting the ghostwriting gigs that you want, maybe you need fewer ghostwriting gigs, but you need to ask for more money. Yep. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. I've certainly been guilty of this where people will ask, how much it would cost for me to come speak. And I say, oh, just cover my flight. And then I find out that they had a $3,000 budget and they would have happily have paid it. So guys, ask for what you want. If you decide, to ask for Mercedes ML 500 prices, well, then make sure you're offering Mercedes ML 500 content. But once you know you've got the content, ask for the Mercedes price, because I got to tell you, Mercedes is not going to give you a Mercedes for the price of a Kia. No matter how, they don't have low self-esteem. You can't buy a new Mercedes for $8,000. And so why should people be able to buy your time and effort at a level that it's not appropriate? And then that middle ground, that journalist, copywriter world that we talked about, it is so rife with opportunities. Do not stop yourself right now by saying you can't do this. You totally can. So Julie, if I was your kid sister and I came to you and I wanted to get started, what would be the first few steps? If I know that I can write, what would be the things that you'd want me to do by next Friday? Get me started. Give me a couple of
as far as educating on the writing side, or as far as getting clients?
No. Literally, I want to start. I'm a writer. I want to start making a living as a writer for other people. Where do I go to learn how to do that?
Go buy the book, The Brain Audit by Sean D'Souza on Amazon. That book is the best way to understand sales writing, and it's about how sales works in the brain, and it's brilliant. And Sean is an amazing guy, and you should follow him everywhere because he's from
SEAN?
SEAND''SOUZA.
Guys, I put that in the chat box.
He's brilliant, and it's beautiful. That book will teach you the basics, and it will also teach you how to sell yourself. So as you are learning how to write this way, you're also learning how to sell yourself to clients. Realize that persuasion is persuasion is persuasion. Then I would say, think about and take out a piece of paper and write down the names of every relative that you can think of, every friend that you can think of who you would be comfortable calling and saying, especially if they have a business of their own, do you or your employer need any writing? And I would get 3 quick clips. These are, in journalism, they're called clips, but they're samples, so that you can say, I have been paid $50 or whatever. And if you want to do it for free because you really want to get practice and you want to get practice talking to people, then you start with who you know, because your mom might work for somebody who desperately needs a writer, and you don't know unless you ask. Your cousin Bob might have his own business and really needs to have a manual written or some technical specs or something like that. So start with who you know, because everyone you know has a job or is a business owner.
And do not choose out someone because you think they wouldn't. There are people, you guys should ask me. People
Yeah.
are, Amy, you're a publisher.
Email me. I hire writers all the damn time.
And you may say to yourself, oh, well, Amy wouldn't need a writer. She knows thousands of writers. You know, I do, but I don't know a lot of good ones. And I'm always looking for new ones, because even really good writers, they decide after their third child that they're going to move to Thailand. Things happen. Do not self-edit. When you're making this list and sending these emails out, just send them. Do not say to yourself, oh, they won't need me. That is so self-defeating.
The more irons you have in the fire, the more clients you will get. You need, it's a numbers game. What I used to do when I first started was I would send out one query to a magazine or to whoever, and I would wait to hear a response. And this is before there was email, so like it was a really long wait. And so that was just, and then I read, I think it was a Bob Bly article or something. I don't know. It was Bob Bly and Dan Kennedy are old dudes. Like they were hot back in the 70s and 80s, and like they're still around and they still write great stuff, but all of their old stuff, don't be fooled that it's not relevant, because it is. But they were like, put as many out there as you can, contact everyone you can think of, because if you put out 100 feelers and you get back 2 really great gigs, that's awesome.
Yes.
If you get back 1 really great gig, that's awesome. If you get back 0, that's awesome too, because you have a place to start from, because at least you were putting yourself out there. Maybe you need to tweak your email. Maybe you need to, be more about giving something before you get, or maybe maybe they went to spam. This is why you start with people you know, because when you start cold calling or reaching out to companies that you don't know personally, they probably, your email's not even going to make it. And if it does, how are you going to know? Right? You don't know who to contact or whatever. So you start with who you know, because you're like, all right, Uncle Bob, so did you get that email that I sent you? And you didn't answer me, so what the heck? So like that's an easier way to get in. And once you have jobs that you have done on the books and you have been paid for them, even if it was $25, I literally worked my first, one of my first journalism jobs. I would go to school board meetings for our little dinky local school, our local town paper in a tiny little town in Maine. They had a newspaper and they needed someone to go listen to the boring ass school board meeting that was like 4 hours long once a month and do a report on it for the paper. And it was $25. I spent probably 6 hours for every meeting I did, but they needed it. And I had clips at that point. I was a professional writer, and that was huge to my confidence. And to when I went out and said, I am a contributing writer for the Bucksport Enterprise, and they didn't know what that was. All they saw was contributing writer, and like, ooh, she's a professional writer. That's awesome. So start with who you know, because it's so much easier.
So guys, that is an overview. There is so much more to teach, but that is an overview of some of the different ways that no matter what kind of an author you are, if income is becoming more and more of a goal of yours, and your choices are Starbucks or writing, we suggest writing. And I really want to thank you, Julie. This has been Julie Ann Eason.
Oh, you're so welcome.
The powerhouse behind Thanet House Books, Thanet House Publishing. But also, guys, do not skip the Work at Home Success Guide, available on Amazon right now. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, the link to Julie Ann's website, thanethousebooks.com and inspireeducatesell.com. They're both below, as well as the link to her Amazon page for the Work at Home Success Guide. Julie Ann, thank you for being on.
You're
with
so
us
welcome.
today.
I love this. I love this stuff. I can talk about it all day long.
And so if you guys are interested, Julie Ann, but again, she's the Mercedes. But if you would like to get in touch with Julie, she very kindly gave us her email. Again, Julie at thanethousebooks.com. She will take your emails, your times and questions. And Julie, thank you for being with us here for Bestseller Builders and Free Advice Friday.
Yes, and thank you, Amy, so much for everything you do, because you are just brilliant. I learn so much from you all the time.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to see everyone next Friday. We're going to do another Free Advice Friday at noon, just like now. And thank you guys so much, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.